What is your least favorite word?
Failure.
What turns you on?
Finding an exciting new product. Really, I mean, I do a lot of what I'm doing right here today. I do this 2 or 3 times a month in front of small groups, large groups, 1,000 people, 100 people, whatever it might be. And ultimately, what I really get excited about is when somebody will come to me afterwards, whether it be in person or an email or something later, and say, wow, I didn't, because I'm not an inventor myself. I've invented one product in 27 years, and actually lost a lot of money on that project. So I only partner with people that are inventors or that have products. So I say to anybody that when I'm speaking, I said, you don't have to have a product right now. You don't have to be an inventor, but somewhere over the next month, week, year, whatever it might be, you're going to be at a cocktail party, you're going to be somewhere, some networking event. You're going to hear about something, and you're going to say, that is a great idea. That's a product I think Kevin might be interested in. So I get, last year we had over 30,000 registered products that came through our process to take a look at. So that's what I love. That's what I love. Finding the new exciting product.
Kevin, what turns you off?
Oh boy, let's see. I think when people come to us, a lot of times, I think that sometimes we just have to, something doesn't work. We give it our best, and a lot of times people they don't accept the fact that it's time to move on. I mean, not everything's going to work. Not everything's going to be a home run, and so. So many times after we've invested, a lot of our own money, a lot of our own time, and we've tried and we've tried and we've tweaked and we can't make it work. You just have to move on. And we actually give the rights back to people. When we sign a contract, we really have an option to roll something out. So our basic deal says, okay, you have a product, we want an option to explore, whether we can make this successful or not. We only hit on 1 out of 3 successes. So 2 out of 3 are failures. So that's a tough thing to deal with. And I think, when we deal with somebody and they can't accept that's tough for me. I understand it, but it's tough for me that, entrepreneurs have to know when to get up and dust themselves off and go on. In fact, there's a quote that I think it's Thomas J. Watson, the founder of IBM. He says, what is the secret to your success? And he says, I double my rate of failure. Okay, and that's really in my business what we do. And if I'm successful 1 out of 3 times, to get to 10 successes, I got to have 20 failures, okay? So I got to double my rate of failure to get to those successes. And I mean, unfortunately, if you only have one product and it's unsuccessful and it's a failure, you're not going to be excited about that. But you have to understand not everything is going to work. You got to be done with it, move on, go to the next one, and make the next one a success.
Good answer. Let's breeze through these next ones. What sound or noise do you love?
I already said it.
Ka-ching. Ka-ching. Okay. What sound or noise do you hate?
A door closing, for opportunity when if somebody when that door slams, that's not a good one.
Okay. What is your most prized possession and why?
I would say my kids, my family. That is, at the end of the day, that's no matter how many hours and days I work, boy, do I love coming home and hanging out with the crew.
What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
The biggest challenge that I run into in my business, and starting up all of the different businesses, is raising capital for these companies. So I've never been the greatest at being, the money raiser, but I've always said if I have the ideas, money will come, and yes, it will sometimes, but not necessarily always. So I think if I had to say, that here's an area that I could focus on in either in addition to what I do, or if I wasn't selling on TV, I would be a financier to be able to use other people's money to finance successes and take a piece of the action.
Okay. What profession would you not like to participate in?
Well, I hate the restaurant business.
Okay. And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, I think I always try to do a fair deal. I try to put myself in the shoes of the person that I'm doing the deal with, because they got to go back to their lawyers, their advisors, their accountants, their wives, their husbands, whatever it may be, and say, this is the deal that was just presented. So I try to structure a fair deal. So, I want to hear that, yes, you drove a hard bargain, but you were fair, so come on in. Okay?
Okay, and this brings us to the third part of our little conversation with Kevin that we call the classroom. This is where I turn over the mic to you. So if you have a question for Kevin, these are your students. Take over, please.
Okay.
I'll pass the mic. Speak into the mic.
Hey Kevin, my name is Jake Loramo. I'm currently the president of the Entrepreneurship Club here. All these awesome people you see in the front row, they're all our members. So thanks for coming here to UT. We really appreciate it. And one question that we're really interested in hearing about is basically who are your heroes? So if you could have dinner with one person in history, dead or alive, who would that be and why?
Well, I think Thomas Edison was an unbelievable creative guy. I've actually been to his factory. And Edison, I have a picture, when I got there, I had a chance to take a picture of sitting at his desk. And I had a really cool feeling at that particular moment. But he had an incubator where you walked into this big factory and you got a stall inside his business. And he went on a daily or weekly basis, hundreds of stalls that he financed the development of people who had ideas. And basically went from stall to stall to stall and imparted his wisdom. And that to me, we kind of do that in a much different fashion as we mentor and help entrepreneurs. But we don't have, it's not, we started something called the TD Goods Inventor Center, and we have patent lawyers and industrial engineers and different people that we have access to. At one point, some of them in-house and some of them just on a Rolodex type basis. But that's really is something that we find very exciting, is helping people take their ideas to the next step. But Thomas Edison was a genius, and so I think that if I could go back in time and sit down with him and understand all of, this was, I don't know, back in the 1700s, I guess, whenever he was around. So he was a hero in my mind.
Next.
What would you suggest for young entrepreneurs that have to raise money? And from your experience of being an entrepreneur, you know that a lot of times you don't get the credibility, you don't get the respect, especially if you need a high level of investment. What would you suggest first to gain that credibility for the investors, and second, to gain immediate credibility with your customers?
Well, I think you kind of have to do it all at once. Depends on what your goals are. Is this something if it's an idea that you're trying to get money for, then money people today, they want to see certain things in place before they're going to put up money. So if you don't have credibility, it's going to be tough to get the money. Okay, now if you've already launched, okay, and you're in business, it's so it depends on where you are really. But I think if you're in business, there's credibility in the fact that you are in business. Are you making money? There's credibility if you're making money. If you have happy customers, yes, those are all very good things. So ultimately, it's easier to raise money. Today, complete startups and ideas are difficult to raise money because people like to see that you know how to do it, that you know that they can see actual hardcore numbers. as opposed to having to take the leap of faith that you're going to get there. So I recommend, getting started, if you can,
It requires a large investment because the cost of goods sold is so high, it's manufacturing. So if you can't start, maybe you have the experience that's relevant, maybe you even have prototypes, but how do you get over that hurdle? Because it's like the chicken or the egg. Yeah, I might have the customers, I might have letters of intent, maybe I'll get their credibility, but how do you get the investors' credibility? Because this all has to happen at the same time.
It's a difficult process, but I think the key thing would be to get a team of advisors in some fashion that maybe have been in this industry before, that will vouch for the fact that, and maybe they own equity also, maybe even if they haven't put in capital equity, the fact that, if I were looking at a business that was a startup, I want to know for sure that the money isn't going to just go in and be used to figure out that it wasn't going to work. Okay, so now if there's people that are involved in having done it before that are as part of the team, that's the credibility that's going to be needed there. Because forget about a bank giving you money, because banks are typically hard asset lenders, so forget about that. But I'm talking about even angels or venture money. You're going to want to have a team that's part of this, that has equity, that has been there before.
Kevin, thanks for coming. Sorry you didn't get to meet you in Kansas City at the GSCA finals. I see you speak at CEO events in Chicago these past years. My question piggybacks off of that, and seeing all these products throughout your life and throughout your career, you mentioned the magical transformation, you mentioned credibility, but what are some of the other major do's and don'ts when you're launching a product as far as pitching it and getting it out to market? So the major do's and don'ts is the question.
Yeah, I think we like to see something that is proven in some fashion somewhere else. Okay. Number one, I like a unique product such that it doesn't already exist substantially in terms of what it performs already in the marketplace. Okay. So if you've got an idea for a product, and I can say, well, geez, that is going to clean, my driveway or something, and there's already, 2 or 3 items that you can go to Home Depot and substantially do the same thing already, then it's not maybe unique enough for me. So that's number one. But also, it's got to be, one of the things a lot of people forget about is, someone will come to me and say, well, geez, we can make a lot of money. I got something that costs, $8 or $9 to make it. We can sell it for $20. We can make $10, $12 a piece on these. This is going to be huge. The numbers have to make sense, okay? The margins have to make sense. You have to allow for the distribution channels in the process. And a lot of times, people have researched out, well, if you're going to get something into Walmart, okay, you've got not just the cost of goods, but you got to have great packaging, you got to have a salesman get it in there, you got to have freight into the store. Don't forget about the returns that you're going to get back, the advertising allowances, et cetera, et cetera. So, you got to run the numbers, and you got to know all the costs that are associated. So, I think that I could spend probably an hour talking about all the things that I look for, but we talked about magical transformation, uniqueness aspect. Being able to, understand the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So, maybe some other time we could, spend a little bit more time on it. But those are a few of them. Yes, sir.
Hey, Kevin. Moving to a more personal subject, we talked about how your father affected you growing up. I don't know if we hit on. I know you have a son. You said you have a son. Is he 22?
22 and 13. Two boys.
Two boys. Can you talk about the effect that you had on them growing up, kind of switching the roles? Can you speak on that for a moment?
Yeah. I think my 22-year-old, I want to make sure that he did graduate. So he just graduated from Penn State last year. And so what's funny now, he got a job out of college. We talked about him maybe coming into the business. And I said, I'd really like to see you. He lives in Philadelphia, working for Sprint Communications as a corporate sales for large accounts, not in a kiosk and a mall type of thing, but corporate sales. And so he's got a nice job right out of college, which is good. But when he was interviewing for jobs, I found it very interesting because, he said, I said, what kind of job are you looking for? He said, well, I don't want a job that has a finite amount of income potential. He said, I want a job that, if I'm successful in it, that, there's a commission structure to the back end. Okay? So I said, that was something that, I said, that probably, if I were in the corporate world, I would, I think having an upside as opposed to the biggest challenge, in a corporate situation with a salary and a finite amount of pay on a weekly basis, I personally would have a tough time. I like, to be more motivated, and I think my son now, he's in the business of having to go out and get leads and try to sell phones to major accounts. So I think he, I know that he likes the fact that if he gets an account that's 300 phones, that's going to be a good deal for him. So I think, I think he's definitely, has approached his corporate world in a similar fashion probably that I would. So that's probably one of the things that I figured out. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Can you talk about the balance between an entrepreneur just jumping into an adventure, or should they waste some time to get experience? Like, talk about that balance. I mean,
well, I'm probably not the best one to tell you about balance. Okay, I think I said in my book somewhere. Someone said, Kevin, you remind me, and Joseph just said it. Ready, fire, aim. Okay, so I don't necessarily think that that's how you should do it, but I think that sometimes that's what entrepreneurs do, and sometimes, let's put it this way: if you can get into a business that you're not going to lose a lot of capital, and you got a chance to jump in and do it. Sometimes you learn as you go, so that's been me, up until recently, because now, I use my own money to do deals, but I raise money, and I use, I was in New York this week. I'm raising institutional capital right now to take one of our companies to the next level. So you can't walk in to an institutional investor and say, my business motto is ready, fire, aim. Okay? You need to be structured and have use of proceeds and a defined system on how you're going to build that business. Okay? But at the same time, I think some of our projects, we have two kinds of projects that we do. So maybe this is probably the best way to summarize this, is that we have certain projects that we do that, that we're very structured, very planned. We do focus groups, we do research, we really look at them A to Z. We put our money into these projects and we run them, like clockwork. We have other things we call it kind of test before we invest. And, those we kind of slap into some kind of a test pattern somewhere, sell it into a catalog, put it on Home Shopping Network, do some kind of market test and throw it out there in some kind of an unofficial type of capacity, more or less, that we get a read on it before we then put it into the more regimented scenario. So I think entrepreneurs can be at different levels like that also, and I think it just depends on the business and your own personal strengths on which way to go.
that's the last question.
Okay.
It seems like you cover a lot of, you do a lot of the entrepreneurial aspect, and you run the numbers, you do the financing aspect too. Would you consider yourself more of an entrepreneur or an accountant or like a financier? Because it seems like you're a broker at the same time.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm an entrepreneur, and I think Joseph, what was that? You said courage. You said something about being able to sustain a wound for long periods of time. That's me. Correct. I would describe that as entrepreneurship also. Okay, so no, absolutely. It is. It's not for everybody, but I think probably. I think we're finished here with the last question now, but I think I sometimes close on something I've lived my life with for many, many years. And it's being an entrepreneur, it's with a vision, okay? I said, I wake up in the morning and I say, whatever I vividly imagine and ardently desire and sincerely believe, if I enthusiastically act upon it, then it must inevitably come to pass. And I think that is how I live my life, and I think entrepreneurs, it must inevitably come to pass. Maybe it's going to take a little bit of pain there for a wound for a while, but you'll get there if you follow those processes. So
let's give Kevin Harrington a big hand. Feel free to network amongst yourselves, and we're going to do a couple photos here with Kevin with some of the sponsors, and thank you for coming today. Look forward to the next one. Check out josephwarren.net.